adopted, giving us time to get it done. It does take thoughtful consideration more than just overnight, and I would hope we would all give whatever evaluation tool that kind of respect.
Thank you, Kathy. And getting back to Matt's point for a second, that was one of the things that we discussed, was that awkwardness of winning election, becoming a brand-new board member, and then immediately having to evaluate someone that you didn't hire and that you haven't worked with, coming into it so fresh. So the idea was to try to get the substantive parts of this completed before that timeline during an election cycle. Thank you, Matt. Annie?
Because we've had some, been talking about this in different ways, in a certain way, it has occurred to me one thought that I don't feel like I've been able to say to others is that, it's creating this tool is like creating the tool of using that trust with verification kind of model. And also that it's another way of, I'm going to take into looking a little bit deeper at this, is it's also a way to look at how we as a board are operating. Because, it's our goals that we are setting with the superintendent. So it's a good way of also taking a look at where are we wanting to go, and have we set goals not too high or too low, or as well as, is this really the direction we want to go? Because I think that comes out in looking at some of the questions, and really looking at philosophically, does it also support what we want? So just putting that out there again is trust and verification for not only our superintendent, but also looking at us and what we are wanting to be and who we're wanting to be as public schools.
Other comments? Seeing none, this will be back for action at our next meeting. Next, we have naming the Professional Learning Facility and Nutrition Services Facility. Kathy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayhew. Policy 3997 and Regulation 3997.1 allowed for us to have a committee of seven community members: Mr. Nick Dean, Mr. Brendan Evans, Ms. Susan Music, Mr. Tom Rempel, Ms. Becky Wise, Ms. Cindy Ryman Yost, and Kelly Zaz, along with Mr. Schulte and Mr. Mayhew and myself, to get together several times to talk about the naming of the Professional Learning Facility and the Nutrition Services Facility. Some said, why name it? Some said, why not? We have a policy that says we should. So we all went through a lot of names, sheets and sheets of names, and why they should be named. And some of them were acronyms that we threw out quickly. Some thought they were pretty cute. We solicited names from the public as well as from the committee. At our next meeting, our committee members will be joining us as we hopefully will move towards adoption of the name for the Professional Learning, the Professional Learning Facility and Nutrition Services. We landed on something that was very important to this community. The Clifton family has been instrumental in helping education move forward, not just in Lincoln, not just in Nebraska, but all across this nation. It's about a highly educated staff having professional learning opportunities. For that reason, the committee unanimously recommended the following name, that it be called the Don Clifton Professional Learning Center. Don Clifton exhibited a passion for professional learning and development of individual strengths. He was an authentic leader who valued people and inspired success. The Clifton philosophy aligns well with the learning mission of Lincoln Public Schools and this innovative space for all of our staff. The committee unanimously recommends that the Nutrition Services Freezer, Cooler, and Dry Storage Space be named the Nutrition Service Distribution Center. This facility will be critical in supporting LPS nutrition services. On any given day, the Nutrition Services program serves 7,200 breakfasts, 26,400 lunches, and 3,200 snacks, and 150 dinners. With that, I would answer questions.
Thank you, Kathy. Questions? All right, seeing no questions, that'll come back for action at our next meeting. Next, we have from the Superintendent's Office, item 9.2.1, indoor air quality at Belmont Elementary School. Dr. Standish.
Yes, this item is before you for first reading for adoption at our next meeting. All of you received the standard schematic design books that detail the components of this project. These bids were very favorable and well within budget, and we bring them forward for your approval. And Scott Wieskamp would be available if we have any more detailed questions about the project.
Questions or comments? All right, this will be back for action at our next meeting. Thank you. Next items for action tonight, we have from the Policy Committee, Policy 1112, Community Relations Advertising. Barb?
Yes, I'll put this in the form of a motion to approve 10.1.1, Policy 1112, Community Relations Advertising. And this has been discussed and reviewed by the Policy Committee, of which I'm terrible sometimes, Matt and Kathy both serve with me on, and if we have any questions, John Neal is here to answer them.
We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Kathy?
I would second that motion.
Discussion? Seeing none, Laura, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Mumgarde?
Yes.
Mr. Schulte?
Yes.
Ms. Byer?
Yes.
Mr. Boswell?
Yes.
Mrs. Danick?
Yes.
Mrs. Duncan?
Yes.
Mr. Mayhew?
Yes. Next, that brings us down to informational items and reports. Are there any reports from board committees? Lanny?
Yes, from the Strategic Planning Committee. Our committee met last week and received an update on our status. The community study team, the 18 members and the staff that are supporting that, are finalizing the themes and supporting statements for their report that will be given to the full board at a televised work session on April 25th at 4:30. And the committee also discussed some potential process and timeline to figure out how we take that plan from the presentation to ultimately a board approval of a strategic plan. We're going to continue to work on that timeline to ensure that all board members have sufficient time to ask the questions that they have, to receive the information that they need. This isn't something that we do every day. It's something we do about every 5 years. So we want to make sure that we take enough time for the board to be comfortable and ready to move forward. But we have some great information to share with you on April 25th.
Outstanding. Questions for Lanny? Kathy? Comments? Oh, another report. Please.
This would be from the Finance Committee. First, I want to thank the board members for availing themselves to meet with Dr. Standish and myself to go over where we were, the things that are built into this current year's budget. Secondly, I want to say the reason we're moving a little bit slower this year is the bills in the legislature may desperately impact what we're doing as a school district. The financial challenges or status quo are in the hands of people that do not sit in these 7 seats but have to implement those things. For that reason, we are taking a strong look at our current budget cycle, our current budget as it stands, and the needs and wants of our school districts. I always say wants, but they're never really wants. We always seem to leave a lot of things on the table that we never get to. We always have children that we serve, but there's always something that we could do better. And I would caution us to not get caught up in where everything sits and looks rosy, because the legislature is dealing with a significant challenge financially, and those challenges affect every school district across the state.
Thank you, Kathy. Other reports from board committees? Lanny, is there a report from the Career Academy?
There is. The Career Academy Board met on March 8th, and we began, as we have, with presentations from students. We had 2 groups in front of us at our last meeting, our culinary students and then also our ag bioscience students, and specifically their FFA competition team. Also, we had a facilities update, and we intend to pilot audio systems in some of the classrooms out at the Career Academy. These are the same systems that we're installing into our LPS classrooms, and we're going to give that a try out there and see how that works. We also talked about a process for changing pathways. One of the main features of the Career Academy as we designed it 2 years ago, and as we went through that process, was the ability to quickly take a pathway and swap it out for a new one as the needs of the community changed. We talked a little bit with Scott about trying to have a 90-day cycle, with the thought being that you finish up your school year and then you're all ready to swap it out over the summer and start that next fall. So we continue to work on that process and what that would look like, how it would interact with the budget timelines, both of LPS and SCC, how it would work with curriculum and instruction to ensure that we have the right staff in place. So it's a work in progress. Just as an example, we know that our health sciences pathway needs more space. It's by far our most popular program. We're working on developing a third shift for those students. And one possibility is to take a food science lab and convert it from a food science into a health. So that's kind of the test case that we're using to look through that process. Dan Hohensee also updated us on First Job Lincoln and some IT internships that are available. Over 50 students participated in that process, and they're competing for 15 internship spots. Next meeting of the Career Academy Board is April 12th, 8 a.m. at the Career Academy, and that concludes my report.
Thank you, Lanny. Next, that takes us to the superintendent's update. Dr. Joel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayhew. Just a quick follow-up on evaluation. I want to point out, primarily for the community, that our Board of Education really does take the evaluation of the superintendent very seriously. In fact, we did one of our 3 presentations. Congratulations to each board member. You aced it at the National School Boards Conference. Each one of our board members had a chance to present. We were invited to do 3 different presentations, and they all were very well attended. We had more than 20-something requests from districts around the country for our evaluation process. And I think the big void in America is that evaluation is often not taken very seriously until it's needed. And then, of course, it's too late. So I think we're a role model. We're a national model with regard to that. And I just want to point out, again, to the community how important it is to a superintendent to receive feedback, but also how much more accountability there is that jobs are getting done the way they need to get done. So thank you for that commitment. Mrs. Danek talked about legislation and finance and budget and all of that. If you read the newspaper column in the paper today, we're heading for a collision course. That collision course really involves 1, a $1 billion deficit, 2, growing needs that to service our population, particularly on the school side, and then 3, this need to reduce taxes. And so we're quite a ways away into the process right now, and it's going to be really interesting, a little terrifying to see what exactly emerges. And I know that you know that we're working very, very hard with the groups that we need to be working with, but I can tell you that the models that are being produced, which again are very preliminary and are definitely subject to a whole lot more conversation, are not friendly to LPS and other districts. So we have to keep our seatbelts on, and we have to keep making our case for the work that we're doing and how that needs to be funded. And that's going to be a very, very difficult challenge going forward. Tomorrow at 9:30 is the zoo expansion reveal. I've been offered an opportunity to speak at that. I'm looking forward to that. Another example of a great community partnership, and of course we're gonna have an expanded zoo school as a result of that. And then, as you've been checking your calendar updates in your inbox, you know that we're fast approaching that season of events and celebrations and graduations, and it's gonna be busy from here on out. But a great time of the year. And certainly when we get an opportunity to see students in action, that's a great reminder of the work, why we do the work that we do and how important it is. And as you've all mentioned before many times publicly, graduation is the culminating event of everything that we do. And that's 2 months from today away. Concludes my report.
Questions for Dr. Joel? Are there any questions for staff on the monthly financial report? Matt?
Maybe just a comment, this is the second month we've had these slightly revised, and I really wanted to say thank you to Liz and to Jill who worked on that. A couple things that stood out to me that I just feel like are much easier to understand and read. One is the addition of the ESU, not EDU, ESU report. That was something specifically I had asked for, so thank you for the addition of that. And the chronological layout of that stuff I really appreciate. Makes it easier on my little brain. So
Next, that brings us to announcements of upcoming events for the board. As Dr. Joel mentioned, tomorrow morning is going to be the Zoo Expansion Reveal Day at the Lincoln Children's Zoo at 9:30 in the morning. On April 5th is the next Chamber Coffee at the Chamber office at 8 a.m. in the morning. On April 6th is the Native American Student Recognition at Firefighters Hall at 6 p.m., and that takes us to our next board meeting on April 11th here at LPSDO at 6 p.m. That brings us again to public comment. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address the board? Seeing none, there is no request for a closed session tonight. There is no ESU meeting, so we stand adjourned.